How did nonviolent resistance succeed against communism? Imagine a world where change happens not with guns or tanks, but through peaceful protests and moral strength. That's how nonviolent resistance made a real difference against communist regimes. During the Cold War era and the collapse of the Eastern Bloc, these peaceful movements showed that mass participation and strategic actions could challenge even the most powerful governments. People gathered in city squares and outside government buildings, holding signs and singing songs that questioned the legitimacy of communist rule. These large gatherings created a visible challenge that made it hard for authorities to crack down without losing support from the public. When security forces tried to repress protests violently, they often faced moral pressure from the crowds, making repression more difficult. A key example is Poland's solidarity movement in the 1980s. It was more than a labor union. It became a broad social movement that united diverse groups of citizens. They promoted values like mutual responsibility and democratic participation, all while staying committed to nonviolence. Solidarity used protests, strikes, underground newspapers, and even symbolic funerals to keep the movement alive. This wide-ranging mobilization created a parallel society that challenged the communist government's control and eventually helped bring about change. These peaceful efforts didn't just stop there. They inspired other movements across Eastern Europe and beyond, like the color revolutions in Serbia, Georgia, Ukraine, and Kyrgyzstan. These protests used street performances, graffiti, and organized rallies to demand fair elections, freedom of speech, and independence from authoritarian control. Youth-led groups like Serbia's Otpor used clever tactics to stay organized and avoid repression, keeping the momentum going. Another important factor was convincing soldiers and security forces not to fire on civilians. Protesters often appealed directly to soldiers, explaining that the government's actions lacked moral legitimacy. Sometimes, the regime's own contradictions and economic problems created openings for dissent. When governments faced economic stagnation and lost their ideological appeal, their grip on power weakened. From the communist point of view, the success of nonviolent resistance came down to internal weaknesses within the system. Economic problems, bureaucratic rigidity, and declining support made it easier for peaceful movements to grow and challenge authority. These movements proved that sustained civic engagement and moral authority could topple even the most rigid regimes without violence. In the end, peaceful resistance succeeded by uniting people, staying disciplined, using clever tactics, and exploiting the vulnerabilities of the communist systems. During the Cold War's final years and the fall of the Eastern Bloc, these movements showed that change can come from the power of people's voices and moral strength, not just weapons or force.